Hey everybody, we are officially back. It is Break the Box podcast. We are just, man, we're moving forward in January. I hope that these last few podcasts have been encouraging you. We're just having real talk, and we have so many things that I know the Lord wants me to just bring to this podcast. And so I'm really excited. I have so much anticipation just for this year and the things God wants to unfold. So thank you for being a part of the journey. I also wanted to give you a quick update. I know there was some change in the way that you can give to support this podcast. Before, you could actually click the link below and it would actually automatically bring you to a sponsor page. So I do have a new link that I'm going to be posting. It's actually hilarious. It's called Buy Me a Coffee, which is brilliant because if you know me, coffee is an obsession of mine. But basically, it's just another platform for giving. So I will actually put Buy Me a Coffee in the links. If you want to click it, it allows you to give like a one-time amount, $1, $3, $5, $10, or you can sign up monthly for $10 a month to support this podcast. I'm so grateful. It just gives me the ability to expand, to do more, to reach more people. And so it gives you a way to be able to partner with me and being able to affect the next generation. So thank you so much for those of you who have been sponsors last year. If the Lord leads you to do so, please click the link below. And I'm so excited because I know God is going to take this to even more places. Well, today I'm super pumped. I have a really cool guest that we've actually been talking for a while about having him come on. The whole reason that I started Break the Box was to talk to the youth and the younger adults. And so if you know me well, I have a really great circle of youth and young adults that I run with all the time. And so I have one particular individual who loves to give me crap and talk sarcasm with me all the time. And so he made a comment one day like, hey, we should do the pod. And I was like, say less. And so today I personally call him PJ, which I'll tell you what it means in a little bit. But will you guys welcome with me to the podcast, Joaquin?
What's up? How's it going?
I love the chuckle before. It's just, it's so
just,
you.
I know. I don't know.
It's who you are.
I just love laughing.
I just love and laughing. I actually, I have known Joaquin for a really long time. So
Too
Joaquin
long.
was almost, gosh, what, like 7 years old when you first came to our church?
Oh my gosh. I would say
Like
yep,
6 or 7?
Seven, almost 8.
He was this scrawny little tiny kid, and I was, back in the day, I was like the children's ministry leader. This was like, gosh, 12 years ago. And I was one of his teachers at the class. And so I've been able to do a lot of life with him and watch him go through like elementary and then into high school and then now being a young adult. And so we have a lot of good conversations. I call him PJ because I am prophetically speaking over his life that one day he is going to be Pastor Joaquin because I know that it's there. But I also just love to mess with him because it's super fun. So I told him, let's just come on and have real conversations. If you know anything about my relationships, I love people who are sarcastic. And Joaquin is probably the most sarcastic, bantering person I have ever met. There's one other person that closely rivals him, but we do a lot of life together, even with our groups. And so sarcasm is kind of my joy. We also do this thing where we talk in our secret accents. Joaquin does the best. Crocodile Dundee accent.
Oh my gosh, I was hoping you would have bring that up.
We should just let them hear. Like, okay, so we do this little thing where I kind of talk like a British accent and I say things like, oh my gosh, the Lord is just so wonderful. And then Joaquin will say something like,
oh my gosh.
Come on.
I don't even know if I could actually do it right now. Oh, you're gonna put me on the spot. Make me really work to be here, aren't you?
but the Lord, he's just so wonderful. And we just want to take a couple minutes to just talk about the goodness of Jesus.
Amen to that. I would do this entire thing with this voice, and she knows I bloody will.
I absolutely love it. No, we do this all the time. Like, if you know, Joaquin is like a tan. Are you actually like Hispanic? I never even actually know that. You're Hispanic, right? I know your mom's from
didn't know
Mexico,
that?
but like, where's your dad
Yeah.
from? Mexico. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, from
He's
parts there.
Hispanic.
So
but
Joaquin is a
technically
very
from Texas.
tan Hispanic man, and he gets the best Crocodile Dundee accent ever. And so it's my favorite, just to talk some shop. But we won't let you hear us the whole time. We just want to take a couple of minutes, and we honestly want to break a box that I think is really cool. So in doing life, Joaquin, with you, I watched you grow up. I watched you go from like being in the kids ministry where, you know, Jesus was introduced to you, you were loving it. You got into a space where like you were enjoying coming to church. I watched you go through the high school season, which we're not going to really talk about, but that was a little sketch. There were some shifts there where like you weren't quite as happy to be here. I remember sometimes hosting youth group and talking to other youth teachers, and they would be like, "Why does Joaquin look like he's just mad at the world today?" And I'm like, "That's just his face." That's just Joaquin. And then you kind of went through this phase where like it was a struggle for you. And so this is what I want to talk about today, Keen. Is like, okay, so statistically in churches, the age gap from 18 to 25 is the biggest fall off for church. So which means like up till 18, your parents like raise you to come to church. They want you to be here. That's who that's what you're going to do. But at 18, you become this adult. And so that spot from 18 to 25 is like, they say 95% of young adults completely fall off, stop serving Jesus, backslide, no longer choose to pursue the Lord, and just go through some really hard life sometimes. And so because of that, they have this whole shift where they no longer do the thing that they had just done for like 18 years. Well, we're going to keep it real. Like you totally experienced that. You know what it felt like to go from like being here and being open to the Lord to having seasons where you're not really sure what you believed, and then having seasons where you still got dragged to church but didn't want to be here. And then seasons where you were like, no, that's not my thing. And then now you've come this full circle part where like you are pursuing Jesus and love him, and even help me run small groups as a lead. Like you've come into such a great place. So this is what I want to ask you is, will you talk a little bit about what that struggle is? Like why there's this thing where like you've been coming to church and that's all you know. And then all of a sudden there's like this shift where you now have to choose Jesus for yourself. And it's just not as easy as like when you were 12 years old.
I would definitely say that a big part of it is just the fact that you're growing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where you actually do start to pick things for yourself.
Yep.
When you're younger, it's so easy for your parent to be like, well, there's no other choice,
This is what you're doing.
You're coming.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm not hiring a babysitter
Yeah.
for like 2 hours so I can go to church.
Yeah.
No, it's like you're coming with me, and you like it or not.
Yep.
And so it's one of those things where the second you technically become an adult, is what people like to say.
Like at
where
18,
you could choose whether you want to do those things or not.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to put in the time and effort because
Sure.
following God is a chore.
It takes work.
It is hard.
Yeah, it takes
It is
work.
hard.
It takes
And
effort.
when you're a kid, you don't realize how hard it is. And
You're
so
just
it's so
like coming
easy,
to
it's so
church with your
butterflies.
parents.
It's like makes rich and adds no sorrow. I love money. Yes,
Stop
please.
it.
That's like my favorite thing.
Yeah, like when you're a kid, it's like the scripture boards on the scripture on the boards, and like your mom telling you to pray. But like when you become an adult, you actually have to figure out, do I really believe this, and am I really like gonna work for this? Because it does. It takes effort.
It's a lot to
Yeah.
pick up your cross and follow him.
Heck yeah.
It is hard work.
So when
And
you
it's a choice that I have to make on
you
like
have
a
to make
daily
it every day,
basis.
huh? So tell me about like when you felt like the shift was shifting for you. Like when did you go from like this is cool and this is what my family does to like, yeah, I don't really know if I buy this anymore. Like, can we just be honest? Because like again, like I love that you're serving Jesus now, but I give you crap about this. There was like a season that I joke, I call it your backslidden years. There was a season that you like checked out. Like it was probably like end of your senior-ish year. And then also like after that for a little season where like let's just be honest, you would like come to church with like all black and like put your hoodie on, and you would have headphones in your ear so that you didn't even have to listen to the worship or anything else, and you would physically be here but you were not present at all. Like I knew you had no interest. So like will you talk a little bit about like when that switch happened for you and like what was going on in your mind?
I don't even like to think about that anymore. I was doing good. I had like given my life to God and everything at like such a young age. And I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? This is so cool. I'm gonna stick to this and I'm gonna do it. And then I realized how much work it was.
Yeah.
And I put in a good amount of work like during middle school and stuff.
Yeah.
But then like high school hit and I was like, I don't know if this can be something that I actually want to pursue.
Yeah, it gets
Like,
hard.
yeah, you hear from other people all the time that are like, oh, it's so great and amazing. And I was like, well, I'm not experiencing said great and amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just putting in work and I'm not getting anything out of it.
That's fair.
And so I thought it was hard.
Yeah.
I was like, I've done so much and I've got so little when there's so many other things that I could be doing. And I'll actually see something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So something I'm not gonna say it was overnight, but it was just like gradually more and more the enemy fed into me like you put in all this time at a church. You know the songs, you know the scriptures, you know the stories,
Yeah.
but what has he done for you?
Wow.
Like yeah, he's done stuff for my mom. He's done
Yeah.
stuff for, many people in my family,
Mm-hmm.
my friends and stuff, but I was like he hasn't done anything specifically for me.
Hmm. Like that was the
And
thought that went through your head was like, I'm putting in all this effort and I'm seeing God do things for people, but I don't really feel like that relationship's real for me. Like I don't feel like he's
over and
personally.
over and over
Hmm.
and over and over. And one
Yeah.
day I was just like, I don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
I was like,
Like,
if I'm not getting anything out of it, there's no point of putting anything in it.
yeah. No, that's fair. So then you went through a season of like still being dragged to church because you were still like at home, and we believe in like if you're under my house, my rules, right?
Oh
So you're
yeah, definitely.
you're coming to church, you're like, this is not for me. I'm not getting anything out of this relationship. Like I'm just gonna show up. I mean, I remember Joaquin, like 'cause I lead worship, so I'm from the stage and I can see. I remember Joaquin like sitting in the seats and like his mom would be like in the back, like on the sound team, like running something. And there would be like other church moms like snapping their fingers like,
Oh
Joaquin,
my
take your
gosh.
take your ear headphones out of your ears. That's so disrespectful. And you would just give them like the snake eyes and then like
Oh dude.
pull one out. And then as soon as they would look the other way, you put the headphone back in your
Oh my
ear.
gosh, yes. Oh, they used to give me so much for that. I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to listen to my music. Like, it's obvious I don't want to be here. So just,
What were you listening to? Can you even
oh,
say that on the
it
pod?
was
Like during
like,
worship, what were you really listening to in your
oh, dude,
headphones?
I would listen to like Metallica or like
Yeah,
rap.
the most
Or like,
opposite of worship
oh
that
yeah,
you could.
definitely. They'd be
Uh-huh.
like, oh, come to the altar. And I'm like, yeah, heck yeah.
So obviously, in your feeling of like, I don't feel like Jesus is doing anything for me, it almost probably, can I say, like almost pushed you in such an opposite way. It was like anything the world presented or anything that you wanted to explore, you no longer felt like that. I can't. It was almost like you feel like you had freedom to kind of like just be you for a minute. Yeah.
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 I experienced a lot of the world.
Hmm.
And I was like, this is stuff that I never thought that I would be doing because, I was raised
In the church. Yeah.
churchly values and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And like
You
the
never
second
thought you would get
I
the
pulled away,
tattoo or.
oh my gosh. Um, like the second I pulled away from it, I was like, there's so much stuff.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I started doing things, I was like, I don't feel convicted. Like, I don't feel like, oh, that's
Wow.
wrong. I was like,
Yeah.
this stuff is so easy to do,
Hmm.
so much easier than doing all of these godly things.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's easier and I enjoy it more and I'm getting things out of it.
Yeah.
So
I think that's honest though. Like this is why I wanted you to come on because I knew you wouldn't like talk bull crap. Like
oh
I
heck no.
knew that you would be honest. Like I think most people in that age bracket feel that way. They feel like I've been taught this thing my whole life, but for some reason it doesn't feel real for me. And then they go, but there's all these things in the world that do feel fun and do feel like they, in the moment, right, feed you or feel comfortable. So why is this not easier? And I think that's a lot of why people explore and like try other things because you said it perfectly. Like serving the Lord takes work. Now, granted, in a minute, we're going to talk a little bit about his benefits. Yes, there's so much in like really having a real relationship, not just a religion. But I also think that that's why a lot of people your age kind of go, I don't know if this is for me because they don't really feel like they're getting as much out of it as they're putting in. And the world has all these things like, hey, look at all this stuff you can do. And it's so fun and nobody even cares. And then you don't feel all this conviction over there. And so it's almost like it's really easy to backslide, right? It's easy. It's really easy to go from like your whole life you were in church serving Jesus to like, I don't want to be here, right? Isn't that crazy how like in just a moment it like the whole thing turned for you?
Exactly. It was one of the easiest decisions I've ever made.
Hmm.
Just straight up. It was one of the
Yeah,
easiest things I ever made. And to say that coming back to God was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
I'm sure, huh?
It
So
was
like the door out was
yeah.
very easy, but the door in took a lot more work.
Oh, definitely.
So what changed for
Definitely.
you? So like you're in the backslidden season, you're being ratchet, you're doing all the stuff your mom doesn't want you to
Oh,
do.
ratchet.
Can boys be
Oh.
ratchet? I don't know if that's a thing.
Oh,
Yeah, I think boys can be ratchet,
I
right?
think so.
Okay,
I
we're
mean,
gonna call you ratchet. Okay, so you were ratchet.
I prefer we didn't use the word ratchet.
Okay.
Just say almost anything else.
You were unholy. We'll call you unholy. You were unholy.
Wow.
And then you're still being forced to come sometimes, but you're checking out. But then all of a sudden, I would say in this somewhere around several weeks or a month, I started to see this change in you. Like it wasn't like a radical, like you came up to the altar and you were like, this is the Lord, hallelujah. Like I just saw almost like a little bit of a turning for you. So I know this is vulnerable to ask, but like what was the thing that kind of showed you that God was real, that God really did love you, that he did go to the cross for you and saw you, and even though you didn't understand all the things that he had for you, like what was that thing that kind of made you maybe even come back to the Lord? Will you talk about that for a minute?
Um, I would say that where it all started was I was living my so-called ratchet life,
Yes. Your
and
hoochie life. I'm just
well,
kidding.
my hoochie,
I don't know. That one was like
yeah.
my age bracket. We would just call people like you were in the ghetto or you're being hoochie, but today we just say ratchet. So
See,
you
what
were
I know as hoochie is very
very different.
different.
Okay, so we'll just
Was
say
not
ratchet for
living
you.
that life. Uh, yeah, let's stick to ratchet.
Well, we'll stay with ratchet. Okay. So you were living
Um,
this worldly, unholy life.
and I had people around me who were like, you know, starting to come to God, and
Hmm.
they're like, you should try it. You should try it. And I was like, yeah, yeah, whatever. Blah
Like
blah
I've
blah
already
blah
done
blah.
that. Hmm.
It was like, trust me, you haven't been doing it as long as I have. All right,
Dang.
like you don't know what it's like. All right,
Yeah.
how many scriptures could you name? How many
Dang.
characters could you name? How many stories could you do? I can name at least 20 off the top of my head. What could you
Yeah.
do? So you don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
I've lived that life, and there's no point of turning back if I'm not getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
And so, um, one day I was just like I was living in my world, and I was so tired with just everything that I was dealing with.
Hmm.
And so I think I've only told this to like one person, or not like one or two people, but I had like struggled with sleeping a lot. I would get maybe like 10 hours of sleep a week.
So
It
you had like
was
severe insomnia.
Oh yeah, it was bad. It was bad. And I would like there would be times where I would literally go to church just to sleep because that's how boring it was. I would
Wow.
I'd be like nothing I haven't heard before.
You're like, this is the best place to sleep at. But you know what it was? It was the peace of the Holy Spirit. That's what we're going to call it.
That's what I
Hmm.
figured out.
Okay.
Um, I struggled with insomnia for so long,
Wow.
and so one night at like 4 in the morning,
Hmm.
I was tossing and turning again, like every other night, and for some reason in the back of my head, because I had owned Bibles. I
Yeah.
had owned Bibles. There's always been like 7 Bibles in the house at once,
Yeah.
but it was the one time when there wasn't a Bible in the house,
Mhm.
and I was like so tired. I didn't want to do anything else, and I just heard read. Just read whatever you could, whatever it was. And I was like, I don't have books, all right? I'm not some nerd who just carries
Like,
books,
I'm not a book
okay?
person. Yeah.
No, I hate reading. Gosh, it's like my least favorite thing.
That's hilarious.
And I was like, what's the best way I could get a book? Like like that, like instantly.
Yeah.
And I looked at my phone and I went into the App Store, and the first thing that popped up, because it has like all the suggested,
Yeah.
first thing that popped up was the Bible app, the
Wow.
eVision Bible app. And I was like, I mean, I guess that's a book.
It is a
It's
book.
not what I wanted, but it's a book.
Isn't that crazy? That popped up first.
I know. And it's like that's not even like one of those things that's just like suggested to people, you
Yeah.
know?
It's like
it's
you.
so
It's like
it's
a
so
Y at the
hidden.
end of the alphabet. You
It's so
version is well.
hidden.
Yeah. But the
And
Lord
so
just like popped it up on your
I was
screen.
like I was too lazy to scroll, so I was like, fine, I'll read it, whatever. I downloaded it, and I always go to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or whatever it is.
Yeah. New
But
Testament. Yeah. You got
New
it right.
Testament, like right in the beginning.
Hmm.
I open up Matthew, and I want to say within 10 minutes, passed out. Like a
Really?
baby.
Wow.
Like a baby. I think I still remember I slept like 14 hours. Like 14 straight hours, and I woke up and I felt so relaxed.
Yeah.
I was always in pain, like for whatever reasons.
Mm.
And I felt like nothing. Like I was awake and I felt great. And I was like, dang, that was a really boring book.
And it put me right to sleep.
I was like, dude, this book is good. So then I went, so the next night,
That's awesome.
struggling to sleep again, and I was
Mhm.
like, okay, I'll read again.
Yeah.
This time I had an actual, like, regular book, that
Okay.
I had like stolen in like the seventh grade.
Wow. I
Um,
love it.
I know. If you're listening to this, teacher,
Stolen Bibles.
sorry,
Stolen Bibles.
sorry. No, it wasn't a Bible. It was like some random book that you get in like the seventh grade.
Oh, it's a book. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it was
They
just
say
like a
stolen
regular book about
Bible.
like
Okay.
pirates or something. I
Okay, so
don't
you
know.
had this stolen book from like the school library.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't want to admit it, but yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, you know what? I'll give this a try. I read it for like 2 hours straight, and I got like halfway through the book,
Hmm.
and I was like, okay, that's weird. This one isn't working.
Wow.
So then I went back, and I was like, well, if the other one is working and this one isn't, I'll give the other one a shot. I
Yeah.
read like another like 2 chapters in Matthew.
Yeah.
Slept like a baby again.
Dang.
And I was like, okay, it's got to be something about this book. It's got to be something. And it's like I hate reading. I have plenty of video games. I have so much that I could do on my phone, and for some reason, I felt like reading.
Wow.
So then I did it again and
Hmm.
again and again and again. And it was like something that I never even like told my mom, because if I told my mom, she'd be like, "Oh my gosh,
You were
it's the
reading.
Lord.
Yeah.
It's the
She would, like,
Lord. He's calling
overstate.
you." And I'm like, "Okay, dude, relax. It's just a book."
I know. As adults, we get like all over spiritual when our kids like pick up a Bible or like say they like a worship song. We're like, oh my gosh, right? Instead of just
It's
being like, cool.
Yeah, like I don't know. It was always so overly spiritual with her, and I was
Yeah.
like, dude, it's just a book. Like at the end of the day, it's
Us
not that
adults, we're
powerful.
guilty. We
It's
can
n
love y'all so much.
Like, yeah, this book is so powerful. It's gonna make me fall asleep like a baby. Yeah, yeah, right. Then I proceeded to fall asleep like a baby for the next like week and a half, almost 2 weeks straight.
Wow.
And then I had realized that I was like, dude, I've read like 2 whole books in like a week,
Wow.
which is a lot for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Like someone who doesn't even read, like you were also realizing, even though it was helping you sleep,
I would,
you were
I was,
actually getting the word.
I was realizing that like I'm purposely going out of my way to not play video games and read, and I
Wow.
was like, I don't like this. And so I would still like go to church with my mom, because she'd be
Hmm.
like, you know, you live here, so you're going to church. You don't have
My
no
dad was the
choice.
same way. Yeah. Get in the car. We're going.
I'd be like, fine, I guess I have friends there. I know how to talk to people, and I know how to
Hmm.
like, you know, good morning, God bless you, have an amazing day. But like,
Oh my gosh.
I didn't
You
really
never
mean it.
said good morning or God bless you to
Well,
nobody
exactly,
in your
exactly.
I'd be
I
like,
would fake it for certain people, but like people who really knew me, they
yeah.
wouldn't get that. They'd get a
I would
nod.
usually be like, hi, Joaquin. And you'd just be like, hey.
I'd be like, sup,
Yeah,
what's up,
sup. And I would just be like, it's good to see you. And you'd be like, mm-hmm. Like
dude?
that was
That's
all I got.
the one thing that was so tiring about coming to church every day was, it's so great to see you, and it's like, no, you're not. No, it's not. Don't fake it with me.
Especially when you're in that funk, you don't even like,
Oh my
you don't
gosh,
even want to
yes.
feel seen. You want to hide, right? So
Yeah.
when people are like, it's so good to see you, you're like, that's exactly why I don't want to be here. Like
Oh
it's funny how the
yes.
enemy will use like somebody's like really probably just genuine, just being nice. And because you're in a rough patch, it almost makes you feel like, see, that's why you shouldn't come. And I think that's another ploy he uses. Like
Hmm.
these people are social and they're going to ask you questions and they're going to want to say hi, or maybe they're friendly and they want to hug you. And so it almost is easier to
Oh
be
my
like,
gosh,
I
the
just don't want to come.
hugs.
Do you love hugging people at church? Is that your
That was like
favorite?
my least favorite. Is like people would come up to me, they'd like, let me shake your hand or let me hug you, and I'm like, dude, no, I don't. I know, like I don't want to be here. You could tell I don't want to be here.
Like, why are
And
you
you're
trying to hug
why are
me?
you being so friendly and so open and so kind to me of all people?
Yeah. Do you feel like even when you were in your funk though, like even like, 'cause I want to keep hearing the story, but like even in your funk, right? When you were like, this is not it, I don't want that. Do you still feel like there were people though who loved you in it? Like, and that made you that did make you feel love? Like, was there like moments or like, or did you always just feel like everybody was fake and I just don't want that? Like, did you ever feel any bit of like people who you felt like, hey, I was really trying to reach out to you, or it was like genuine, even if you couldn't receive it?
There was definitely people there that
Hmm.
were like, no matter what stages of life I was going through, they were
Hmm.
there. And they
Yeah.
were like, look, man, you know, you look like you're having a crappy day.
You're
But
hating
I
life
want
right
you to know,
now.
I want you to know I'm still here.
Yeah.
And that there would be people who were like, "Oh, I'm here for you, you know, whenever you need." And I'm
Hmm.
like, "No, you're not. You don't know what
Hmm.
it's like.
Yeah.
You're faking it, right?"
Yeah. So you knew
But
who
then
the real people were.
I knew they were who the real ones were, who like
Yeah.
really had my back, like the ones who like actually prayed for me
When they
and
said they prayed
genuinely
for you.
cared, like
Hmm.
genuinely cared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
would you even like delve far enough to say like looking back now, the people who did really care for you and prayed for you probably made a difference on you coming back?
I would say that they would.
Yeah.
And like Like honestly, they're some of the closest people to me
Hmm.
is those people. And there's even like one or two who are like, yeah, you're faking it. You're faking it. And I'll admit I was
We're
wrong
not
about
naming
them.
names. We're not
I
naming
won't
names on
name
the pod.
names,
Okay.
but I was like, you're faking it, but I was totally wrong. And they're some of
Yeah.
the most genuine people
Yeah.
who treated me with so much love and respect
Good.
when it was clearly not reciprocated.
Yeah, when you were, well, like, I'll be honest, like, even in our relationship, like, I went from seeing you literally like one of the kids in my elementary class, like, who loved Jesus, and like, we would put on worship music, and like, we used to have instruments in the elementary class, and
Oh,
I used to get out the bongos, and Joaquin would play the bongos in the kids' ministries, and he loved it. Like, he was down for Jesus. So then, like, I got to like watch you grow up, right? And go through this like kind of a funk, right? And I could see it. I knew, I identified, like, I've worked with so many youth and young adults. Like, I knew, like, probably 3 years in, like, yeah, he's in the struggle bus. But I always did try to like just be like, hi, like, I just want you to know that I see you, because I wasn't, this is the thing I think we need to remember as adults. Like, it's not our job to change you guys, and it's not our job to fix you guys. It's our job to love you guys and remind you, hey, when you're ready, we're always still here and Jesus is still here. Like, I think the more that adults put this pressure, like, come on, you just got to be good and you got to read and you got to do, it almost pushes you guys back quicker. And sometimes when we, of course, still teach you the truth, but we also give you just space, like, I would see you come in your hoodie and I would see your headphones and, like, hello, I'm over here leading worship. And I know you're listening to Metallica or something else in your headphones, right? And I wouldn't come up to you and say something smart like, hey, fool, I was trying to lead worship. Why weren't you listening? Like, I didn't do that. I just would be like, hey, dude, it's good to see you, right? And that was hard for me too, because I had watched you come through this great season and now you're in this, funk right now. But at the end of the day, I think I also had to remember, like you said it perfectly, like, you were growing and transitioning into the man that you are now, and your brain was developing and you're making these choices. And I needed to give you a space to still feel like, hey, even though you're not doing what I want you to do right now, I still see you and I still love you. I think that's the best way that we can be Jesus to this generation, is by showing them that even when they don't do the things that we want, we're not going to stop being the same person to them. Like, would you agree with that? Or did you just think I was like a crazy girl with platinum bleach blonde hair?
oh, you've always been crazy,
Yeah, a
but
little bit.
you're definitely right about that. It's that was one of the biggest things was like when you're in that you don't feel seen. But
Hmm.
having even like those one or two people, maybe more,
Yeah.
just actually there that they don't treat you differently. Because
Yeah.
when you're shunned from the church, you want to shun the church.
Yeah.
But just because I didn't want to be at the church didn't mean that I didn't want to see certain people from the church.
Hmm.
And so those people really had a grasp on me
Yeah.
and were definitely one of the biggest reasons on why I fought for my relationship with God.
I love that. So let's catch back up to your story, right? Like, you're listening to this Bible app, you're like starting to feel like it's like a sleeping pill, like it's starting to hit you. So then what happens next?
Um, I felt a lot more at peace.
Hmm.
I was always very angry. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes I wouldn't even have reasons. I just was.
Yeah.
I didn't like people. And so slowly the music's, I started turning it down. But like, all right, well, the music's done. I gotta at least listen to a little bit of like a sermon.
Mm-hmm.
I'd give it like a foot in the door because the music was still boring compared to Metallica. Just saying, platinum artists.
Okay.
But um, I
Long way
was like,
from
all
the
right,
bongos. Long way from the bongos.
oh yeah,
Huh?
oh yeah. But
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. So
Hmm.
then I give it a little bit more of a try, and just week after week, and I started reading more instead of not just to put me to sleep, but to actually put in a little bit of effort.
Hmm.
And so it grew from there, and then it started to backslide again. Like
Yeah.
just a little bit, I was like, okay, well, this is the exact same thing that happened last time. I wasn't getting anything.
Yeah.
I still don't have friends. I still don't have all these things that I wanted
Hmm.
that I wasn't getting before.
Yeah.
And then a good friend of mine was like, "Hey, I see, you're coming, but like you're a lot like you're not the same person as you were like 2 months ago."
Hmm.
And I I think it would be really cool if you came to a youth night with like me and my friends. And I was like, I mean,
Like, I've been to those.
I was like, I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
But I
Was
was
this like,
like,
let me ask, like, we want to name names. Like, is this a younger person or an adult?
oh no, it was one of the younger adults. We
Okay.
were same age
Like
bracket, same
somebody
age
in your age
bracket.
bracket. Okay. So they were
Yeah.
like, come to this young adults or youth thing with us.
Oh yeah. But
Did you go?
I was really hesitant at first, but then I was like, I'm sick that day. But then the day came, and I was like, I don't want to be home, so it gives me something to do.
Hmm.
So I was like, I texted him, and I was like, Yo, is that invitation still open? She was like, Of course, I'll pick you up in an hour.
I love it.
And I was like, All right. And I went, and that's when it hit me. It hit me hard.
Really?
Like, I listened, like, that was like the first time that I like really, really listened to like actual worship and
Wow.
like genuinely put in time and like listened to a sermon.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, like the second we walked out those doors, I looked at her and I was like, that was like some of the best worship I've ever heard.
Hmm.
And not just because I like music, but like
Yeah.
that one was good.
It was just so good. And it hit
And
you.
the sermon dug a hole straight through my heart.
I
Like
love
that
that.
one hit me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, maybe I was supposed to come tonight." I was like, I could have done anything else,
Yeah.
but
I love how God like unexpectedly was drawing you. Like he made the sleep issue that drew you in with the word. He made the hey, I want community to like someone's gonna invite you. But like it wasn't even that he was like shoving the gospel down your throat. He just kind of was giving you these little doors to like kind of have a new picture of who he was. Not the Jesus you had known when you were little and it was forced, but the Jesus you were like coming to know as Joaquin, the like young adult man who has to decide what he wants to do, right? And I love like even hearing that is so cool to see how God will find the most unexpected things to go, hey, this is me, and there's more to it than you realize, right? That's so freaking cool. So then after
I
that,
I thought it was cool.
did you just like spiral into like a good train? Did you feel like you had to work at it, but it still felt like things were clicking? Like what do you think was like maybe even the thing that kind of got you over into the okay, I'm ready to really give God my yes?
I would say that it still took a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember being like, wow, this one was different.
Mm-hmm.
Like this one was good, different,
Yeah.
and I liked it. And so I
Yeah.
was like, okay, maybe I'll dig a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you said, I started joining a community
Mm-hmm.
of the young adults that were around me.
Yeah.
And it was just encouragement after encouragement and after encouragement.
Yep.
And I was like, I'll actually put in some time to this. And so I slowly did
Yeah.
more and more and more. And at this time, I still wasn't hearing anything
Yeah.
from God myself.
Mm.
And there would be a lot of times where I would have my doubts. I'd
Mm-hmm.
have my doubts, but God was real quick to send someone and be like, who are you doubting? Have I not done this, this, and this?
Yeah.
And
That's so
I think that
cool.
was like one of the first time I ever like truly experienced God and his love. And
Yeah.
I was like, this stuff is heavy.
Will you talk
Like
about that for a
this is
minute?
some work.
Like, give us some general examples. Because I think I know what you're referring to in that. Like, you had moments where you prayed for things, and then, like, the Lord would, like, speak or, like, bring a prophetic word or something would come to you, and you would be like, that was exactly what I had just been praying for, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong.
One of them, it was, yeah, I was going through a little bit of a rough patch, like with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, I can't put up with this guy. Like, nothing is getting better. And like, yeah, we have our good moments, but that doesn't really outweigh the bad. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I was praying a lot about, my relationship with my father and just
Mm-hmm.
so many things and how there would be times where I was angry at him and I wouldn't even want to see him or I wouldn't want to do any of these things.
Yeah.
And I remember I was sitting in church one day and someone was like, I'm picking you out in front of everyone here and I
Mm-hmm.
want everyone to hear to know that God has heard you and he's going to restore a relationship with your father. And I was like, okay, I never told that to anybody. Who's your source? All right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's like, in front of everyone, she's like, God has told me personally that he's going to restore the relationship you have with your father. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, again, who is your source? Like, this isn't adding up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It scared you, but it also caught your attention.
It was definitely one of those big grasps that like you
Yeah.
just feel it tug you in so violently. And
Yeah. And
but
that's
I
the
was
cool
like, oh
part.
my gosh, this is like real, real.
Yeah. Like it really like it shows you that God actually hears you. Like that's one of the things that I love so much about the prophetic, which is just hearing from God. It has nothing to do with being like, "Oh, like I can hear from God just cuz it's cool." I think it has everything to do with being able to give a message to somebody that you have no idea what they're going through or no idea what their life is like or if they just had the worst week of their life and like tried to take their own life. And sometimes that one word from God can shift their whole life in the right direction because they feel seen. They feel like God did hear them. They feel like God does care for them. And that's what I think is so cool is that when we pray for things like, Lord, speak to me, not just for me, but for other people, it's so freaking cool because I've seen so many people, like you just said it perfectly, where like God will show up in a moment and be like, hey, that very thing that you secretly prayed for, I want you to know I'm working. And then how do you not deny? Like, there is nobody in this world can do that but Jesus, right? And so you have these moments where you go, okay, maybe this thing is real. Like maybe God does care. And this is the thing is you were praying about the struggle with your dad, which some people could even say is like, okay, yeah, that was just like something simple. But to God, it was also important. Like he cared enough as your father, like your God the Father, that he wanted you to know, hey, I know that's heavy for you and like I'm working on it. I think it's also was his way of showing you like, see, I am gonna do things for you and I'm gonna show you how to love you the way that you need to be loved. Like that, man, that's so cool, dude. Like I absolutely love that. That just like encourages my heart for like even the future. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. I have a bunch of times, even in our relationship, where like I will get a word for like Joaquin and I'll be like, hey, I have something for you. And he'll be like, oh, brother, here we go.
Oh my gosh, there's literally been times where I'm like busy and I'll get a text from her and I'm like, oh, I don't even want to read this. I don't got time for her. Gosh. And then like 45 minutes later, I open it and I'm like, ah, this is what I was just praying about. I think the last time I literally texted, I was like, dude, you are scary. I'm gonna block you. Stop figuring things
Wow.
out from God.
Wow. But see, that's the thing is like, you needed to know that, dude. Like, you needed God to make himself that real to you, not just in church or just in like putting on the parts, right? You needed God to go, I laid something on someone else's heart to tell you because I know what you're going through. I think if you didn't have those moments, you would have probably still found your way back to the Lord. But I think those are moments that will constantly anchor you because you'll be like, nah, I can't deny that God is real. No, I
It
can't deny that he saw me.
it definitely made it so much more personal
Yeah.
that he used people,
Yeah.
and like it definitely kept me accountable. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
because like I'd get words and be like, well, you need to pray and you need to actually like dig into this, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. But then when you have someone holding you accountable, like, okay, well,
How's
we
that
talked
going?
about
Are we
it.
doing
How's it
it?
going? Are you doing it? I'm like, I mean, last time I wasn't, but this time I am.
I know, right? But it's
So
good. You're right. It does bring accountability too. And it has to also like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it has to encourage you too that one day God will use you in that same way for someone else. Like that God could use you as that prophetic person that one day will bring hope or an encouragement text that feels crazy, but show somebody that God is real. Because when something happens to you like that, it marks your life, right? It's more than just spiritual or Bible study, it's real. And so I hope that it gives you hope that like God wants to use you in that same way to help the generation after you so that you can one day shoot a text to some youth kid and be like, hey, God laid this on my heart for you today. And that could be their moment where they're like, oh my God, how did you know that? Right? That must be God, because that's what God wants. He wants you to be empowered by Him too.
I think that would be totally awesome.
That's
Just
good.
waiting for that. God, if you're listening,
I'm
just
ready.
let me know when.
I'm available. It's okay. I'm gonna mentor you this year. I'm gonna get you in that space to hear from Jesus because I think that gift is all on you. But I want to kind of close with this and thank you for your honesty. Thank you for even sharing that. I know for a young man your age, sometimes like talking about even the stuff we go through or the rough patches isn't easy. But I love that about you, Joaquin. Like you're not afraid to go, yeah, I went through a rough patch, or yeah, I was listening to Metallica at church, or yeah, no, that wasn't it. But you also are big enough to go, but this is how I needed God to show up for me. And He did, right? And so thank you for just being vulnerable and coming on here. And so I want to kind of close with this idea. And I'd love for you to just answer this for me. So you went through all this, God starts drawing you back. I know you wound up like coming to like community groups, really plugging in. I wound up being like, hey, you want to help me lead a group? And you were like, not really, but okay. And the next thing I know, like you're helping me with the youth, and like you've been such a huge part of even like the church that we have now. Like it's been beautiful to see even like what God is doing in your life. But what would you say to somebody who is in the boat that you were? Or what would you say to like a youth or young adult who's in that 18 to 25 window where they just feel like, I don't know what to do, and I don't know if I want to keep choosing it, and I don't know how to even decide what I want? Like, what advice would you give them looking back that you wish maybe somebody even told you?
Honestly, one of the biggest things that I would have loved to hear
Mm-hmm.
was be patient.
Mm,
That it's coming, but be patient and
wow.
actually give God a chance.
I love that.
Because if I never gave God a chance and I wasn't patient, I would not be sitting here today.
Right.
It would have been such a different kind of podcast I would be on.
Yeah. I'll
But
be like, let's talk about your 7 baby mamas and your last relationship and your stint in prison. Right? That would have been
oh
a fun
no.
pod too, though. I mean, I would have been totally down. I would have had you on.
Sign me up.
That would have been
Let's
like
get
your
deep.
that would have been your hoochie mama episode. But no, but you know, I love that. Like it was, you're saying be realistic. Like don't tell people it's just easy and it's just
Yeah.
gonna be fine and you're gonna ask God to take your life and to use it and it's just gonna be, you know, rainbows and butterflies. But like you're being honest, you're saying be patient. Like there's still gonna be hard days. There's still gonna be days you're figuring that out. But like don't give up. Like keep giving God your yes. I think that is exactly what your generation needs to know, is that there's going to be a moment where you have been your whole life forced to do something. And I know I don't like that word, but it's just true. I mean, I was a pastor's kid. Like I got drugged to church whether I wanted to or not. But then when you hit 18, you have to decide, do I want this or do they want this? Right. And I think that's the best way to say it, is to go, hey God, like I don't even completely always understand it, but show me that you're real, and I'll be patient as I press in. But if you don't give him that opportunity even to make himself real for you, it won't last. You know what I mean? Like if you think you have to be this perfect little Christian, you will never be that. But like even for you, I've seen you grow so much in the last few years, and I know this is only the beginning for you. Like I know God has so much more for you to do. That's why I call you PJ, because I know one day you'll be Pastor Joaquin, and
One day.
and that's okay. It doesn't need to be today. I'm not saying it like I want you to be this tomorrow. I'm just saying like I know what God is doing in you and it's real. Like you're not fake and you're not putting on this like perfect little put together Jesus gospel. Like you're just yourself. And some days you're still like, yeah, I don't know about that or I don't get that. But I think because you've approached it so real, I know that what God has done in your life and the where you're at with the walk with the Lord today is real, because you're approaching it just authentically. And when you have questions or you don't understand, you ask them. You don't just cover it like, well, that's just what everybody else wants. So, you know, and so I'm really proud of you, dude. Like I'm proud of you you went through a lot of things. We don't even have time to talk about all of those, but you went through some really hard seasons. And I think that the Lord just met you in that moment. And so thanks for just coming on and talking about. Is there anything else you want to throw in before we wrap up?
Dude, there's nothing that I can think of right now.
Okay.
It hasn't been covered.
He's like, we did great. We put our accents in there.
Yeah, as long as I get the nicknames and the accents.
Hey, you didn't even make fun of me on this podcast. I'm feeling really proud right now in this moment, though.
Oh my gosh, I
because
guess we have to do another one. Just one podcast of me completely making fun of
just
you.
make it. Joaquin actually used to make fun of me. He used to tell me that I had really bad hairstyle and that I had bad clothing
was
like my
awful.
whole life. Wow.
It was awful.
It was like the 80s, dude. Like you were a kid and I was like
People in the
your
80s still
age.
dress better than that.
Dang, I had like platinum blonde hair and I had like
Oh
cool
no.
over the top colorful style and
Dude, like none of the colors matched and your outfits wouldn't match your shoes.
yeah, I was a little eclectic. I was a little eclectic bird. Thank the Lord he has redeemed me and brought me back. But
Oh, thank goodness.
thank you for loving me in my rough patch then. Maybe that's what I
Oh,
should
yes.
be saying.
It was pretty fair trade, I would say.
Wow. I don't know about that one, but well, I appreciate you, friend. And I actually think I think I'm gonna have I think this even just reminds me why I want to have even more young adults on this podcast, because yes, I want people who can pour into you guys, but I also want real talk like this. Like I want people to give examples of like, hey, this is the thoughts I had and the feelings I had, but this is how God showed up. To me, that's real. And that's what's going to change your generation. My hope on this podcast is to like have a platform for not just my voice, but other voices to reach people that need to be reached. And that's you guys. Like, I think your generation is going to win the next generation. Like, it's people seeing you and going, hey, Joaquin went through some stuff and he was still working it out, but look, he still chose God, and look what God has done because he's put his best foot forward. I think as they see those real things developing you guys, that's what's going to change your generation. So my encouragement to you is keep being patient. Keep letting God show you that, not only did he pay an ultimate sacrifice when he went to the cross for you, but he will also continue to show up and blow your mind with the fact that he sees you and cares for you. And I'm just excited, dude. I'm excited to be here championing you, cheerleading you, pushing you a little bit, because that's what loving mentors do. We push you out onto the water a little bit.
Okay, okay.
But I believe the best in you, and I'm super excited. So thanks for coming on the pod. Thanks for sharing a little bit of your story. I love you, dude.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, that is it for today. Thank you so very much for coming just to take a couple minutes to hang out with us on Break the Box. I know this. Each week, we're going to keep going after new things, and we are going to grow together. I love y'all. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next week.